There's 3D printing, electronics, lasers, Greg's Maker Corner, and other stuff too. Alright guys, welcome to Greg's Maker Corner. Good to have you back. Today I'm going to be talking about a project that I'm pretty excited to put together from a company called Just Add Filament. And this project is basically, it's a project that you can order on their website. I'm currently beta testing it, and the idea is you know, it's kind of self-explanatory based on the name, but you would order their kit, their project, and then they're going to send you the electronic parts, and then you're going to just add filament. So you'll be printing something out and then fitting it together with the components. So I'm going to go ahead and show you the components. This is the bag. It comes in, basically comes in a little bag like this. This is the Joule Thief Flashlight. So what you get here is a battery holder for basically a AA battery, 1.5 volts. You get a couple of LED lights. Here's called a Toroidal Inductor. And what that does is that's really kind of the secret sauce to this component, or to this Joule Thief Flashlight that we're going to build. And what it does is it basically rapidly switches the transistor here, and it oscillates to create voltage and draw pretty much as it can suck dry from the battery. A couple screws, a magnet or two, a couple of nuts there, M3 nuts I believe. There's a transistor, which is this piece. There's a little push button, and then there's some kind of a switch here, and then the PCB. So this is a custom PCB that I believe they designed, and the nice thing I like about this is you can really see where all of the components fit. It's very self-explanatory. You really don't need instructions if you kind of know what you're doing. So you can tell, like right here, there's a rounded part for the transistor. There's a flat part for the LED. You can see where your battery runs, which is this V+, and then the ground, which is here, the negative, and then the button and the switch are pretty self-explanatory. So the only other thing you need is you're going to have to print a piece. So the STL files are provided. I printed this in PETG. So there's a silver one here, and then a black one. This is like the bottom. This is the top, what the case looks like when you put the top on. So you can see it just fits right there. It fits really well, assuming that you have a calibrated printer, which mine's been printing a lot of parts lately and it's calibrated, so no problem there. I would probably recommend supports. I got a little bit of a rough spot here. So when you print this, you may want to print it with supports. I did not do that, but I think it's going to be fine. All right, in order to do this project, you're going to need a soldering iron. I use this 898D Plus soldering station, rework station. This is basically a Hacko knockoff, but it's probably about 60 bucks on Amazon. I love it. It's got a nice digital readout for setting the temperature. I also use this solder smoke absorber, so when you're using your soldering iron, the smoke will basically rise up and be sucked into here. Something else that'll be very helpful is a helping hands, and this allows you to put your board in here and then kind of work on it. Of course, you'll need some solder. I use, this is a brand I found on Amazon that I like. It's an SN63 PB37 mix, and it has flux in it as well. I use this brass cleaner for the tip. So what you're going to do is, when your tip gets a little dirty, you just dip it in there. I prefer doing that over the sponge method because the sponge can cause a big thermal change in the tip. The sponge will degrade the tip faster than the brass will. Okay, the first thing I'm going to do is poke the wire inside these terminals and tin them. So you basically just want to take a little bit of solder, tin the end of the tips. Just helps conduct the solder once you put it in. So now that I've got it in, and I've already tinned this one, I'm basically just going to come up, put a little bit of solder in there, and then push it down just a tiny bit. So now that connection's all the way down in there. There's solder on it. I'm going to do the same thing with the black wire. Put a little bit there. And just lift it up a tiny bit. I like them to go all the way flush if I can do that. There we go. So those connections are done. That's probably the one of the easiest ones. All right, next up, I simply fit the switch in here, and I'm going to flip the board over. It should stay in. And then I'm just going to solder each of these 4 pins. So the board can only really go in one way. So just fit it in how it fits. It should be fine. So same drill. Just hold your iron there for a second or two. You don't want to hold it for too long. And then make sure the solder just holds it in place. You don't want anything loose. You don't want too much solder on there either. So I'll try to zoom in a little bit so you can see what it looks like. On this next switch, I'm going to insert it in, and then I'm going to, since it's kind of loose, I'm just going to flip it over and lay it on my mat. And then I'm going to solder it like this. So there's a little pressure holding it in. And then as you can see, I have a little bit of an angle here, so not a problem. What I do is I just kind of hold it, get these hot, and push it up. It should snap in. Might take a few tries. There we go. There's definitely different ways. Everybody's got a different technique. And as I always say on these projects, don't let perfect be the enemy of the good enough. Okay, I'm pretty happy with that. I've got it pretty flush with the board, and the switch does operate. I did notice on the cover here that it's going to have to fit through there, so both of these are. So you may want to dry fit everything. Okay, looking at this thing, you want to make sure the windings, you can see the windings kind of come underneath for this one here and this one here. If you look really closely at the silk screen, you can see that. So I'm going to match it up exactly. So because it's going to take a little bit of finesse, I'm going to pause it and I'll come back. Okay, I did try dry fitting this with the plastic, and I believe it's going to be fine. I am going to leave a little bit of a gap in between there because otherwise I'd really have to bend the legs, and I don't want to do that. So I think it's fine because with this design, you can, it looks like it has room to sit above it. So I'm going to go ahead and set it down and solder it. I think you want a little play in there because if you don't have it, you're probably going to not be able to flex it as much. The other thing that you're going to want to do is you want to trim these legs a little bit before you put it in the case, because otherwise they're going to be causing some problems. So they're a little too long, they won't fit. Okay, and that is done. All right, so at this point we've got the push button, the switch, and the inductor all on. Next I'm going to do the transistor. So the transistor, you can see here it has the flat part in the back and the circular part in the front, so we're basically going to fit it in here, flip it over, and solder it. All right, I've got the transistor in there. I did end up bending the legs a little bit with the pair of pliers. The reason I did that is because I wanted it to go as close to the board as I could. So now I'm just soldering it in. Oh, better double check that I have it. Yeah, just double check that you have you have it where you need it to be. Okay, that's it. Transistor is done. So now, at this point, we just have the resistor and the 2 LEDs to do. One thing I forgot to mention is after you put the transistor in, you can see it's kind of a little bit high. I actually want it to be lower than this. So I'm going to just take my finger, apply some pressure, and apply some heat to each of these legs so I can push it in and make it just a tiny bit flatter if it'll let me. I think I'm probably all right, but just want to get a little more. Yes, that's a little better. So it's just a hair under this. The reason for that is otherwise it's probably not gonna close properly. I might even have to do more. Yeah. So the other option would be to just bend it down. So I might do that instead. So you can bend it, you just want to be real gentle. So let's do that. Oop. So I wasn't real gentle, but I did bend it without breaking it. So, but yeah, now it should go down. So you can also bend it. Just be very gentle, so you don't want to break that. At this point, I'm just checking my fit, and I can access the button. I can do the switch. It's maybe a little hard, but I can do it. And the inductor's fitting, so I think I'm in pretty good shape. I was able to get it down, so I'm gonna keep moving on. So the polarity on the resistor does not matter. You just put it in, and then you're gonna pull the legs through as much as you can. Okay, I got the resistor in, and now I'm going to solder it. All right, and that pretty much, you can see how I ended up laying it. It is sitting a little higher, which is fine. I'm going to trim all this at once at the end. Okay, for the LEDs, there's a flat part here, and the flat part's facing up. If you look at the LED, you can see there's two sides. Well, it's kind of a circle, but there's a flat part of the circle. The other thing that's probably easier is the short leg is the negative, or the cathode, and the long leg is the positive, or the anode. So you're just gonna kind of fit those in. Now, I did notice in the picture these were kind of bent like this, so I'm gonna try and bend them a little bit, and I'm gonna dry fit it as well to make sure it seems right. Okay, this looks like it's gonna fit based on kind of the model here. So you can see there's a little slit here for the LEDs to pop out of. So I'm gonna go ahead and solder it just like that. In worst case, I can push it down more if I need to. And again, just double check that your flat side's there and your short leg is in the negative. And then we're going to do the same thing for the other LED, and then we should be about done. Okay, now I've got both the LEDs soldered. You can kind of see how I've got them going right over the edge here. Good news, I've got some lights here. The first battery I checked was a little too dead, but this one appears to work. So you can see there's a switch. I'm thinking this button, yep. So you can either turn it on and just leave it on, or you can turn it off with a switch and then just push the button. So make sure you trim down all these little connectors and things before you put it in the case, because otherwise it's probably not going to fit. But there is a lot of room in there. So I'm just going to take my scissors, kind of trim it. Not going to get too crazy here, but just basically cut it so it's not going to move around and short out on anything else. Do a little close up here so you can see it. Make sure your solder, this is a good time to check your solder joints. Make sure there's no cold joints, they're all shiny. And the other thing, like right here, you can see I soldered on the top. You don't really have to do the bottom too, but you can. You just want to make sure the ones you done on the top are good and the ones on the bottom are good. Most of these were done on the bottom. Okay, I basically just slid the board right in here, and it's a perfect fit. It doesn't even really move around. And then the other thing you got to do is there's a nut. Anyway, you just put it in here and then push it in, and then you should be able to put your screw in there. And then after that, you're gonna route your wires through, and then I'm gonna try and set it on top of this. Okay, so after finessing the wires, I tucked them underneath, and then it seems like it's still pretty good. So now the real test is to see if it still works. So I'm gonna put my battery in, and I'll push my button, yep. So we are still in good shape. So now we're just gonna put the cover on. I believe hopefully one of these will work. It's like a little button head. Yep, it's going right in. Okay. Yeah, so not looking too bad. I think, yeah, the other thing you may want to do is open that up just a tad so the switch can move easier, or just use the button. But hey, it's pretty cool. I'm very impressed. All right, so after doing the Joule Thief project from Just Add Filament, I think I really enjoyed it. It was a very simple project. It probably took me maybe a half hour tops, and that was with recording a video. So I have done quite a bit of electronics work, you know, partly because of some of my other hobbies, 3D printing, drones, and that sort of thing. Yeah, if you're a kind of a beginner looking to get into projects and do electronics, I think this is a great option. It's also a lot of fun, and you know, I think you'll enjoy it. I believe the projects are going to be around the $15 range, maybe plus shipping. So I think it's definitely worth $15 in my book. So highly recommend, and please check out the rest of my channel. Thanks for watching.